I do know for the final portion of this conversation, I do want to get your perspective on Iran because you're a veteran, you enlisted in the Army Reserve, you were activated for Operation Enduring Freedom. And when it comes to Iran, it seems like, according to reporting, President Trump is really weighing his potential military options when it comes to the region. We've seen a large military buildup in the Middle East, the biggest since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. This comes as U.S. and Iranian officials have continued to meet for negotiations when it comes to Iran's nuclear program. And I want to talk about something in part President Trump said during his State of the Union about Iran. He said this, quote, "They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy, but one thing is for certain. I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen." What are your thoughts on this, especially coming from someone who served in the military?
Yeah, look, it's really frustrating for me, right? I agree that Iran is a threat. I agree that Iran should not have nuclear capabilities where they can use it against us because, we want to make sure that we're secure and America is going to be safe from any type of attacks through Iran, through their agency with Hezbollah or Hamas or Houthis, you name it. I get it. But at the same time, as a veteran, I look at these actions that we're taking and this president is taking where we shouldn't be committing ourselves to another forever war. We shouldn't be, if you're going to put American soldiers' lives at risk, military personnel at risk, you got to really think about what you're going to do here. You campaigned on no more forever wars. Let's stick to that. But at the same time, I think there is a way through the diplomacy to make sure that Iran does not build up their nuclear capabilities.
I think if you were tuning into the State of the Union, you could be getting conflicting messages because in one breath, President Trump is saying, with Operation Midnight Hammer, we completely decimated, we obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. In the next breath, he's saying they're rebuilding that up. They're making missiles that could soon reach the United States. I mean, is there evidence of that? Because when we've seen President Trump's comments on that, when we've seen Vice President J.D. Vance echo a similar statement, something that was on Twitter yesterday were then photos of President Bush and other moments from that time talking about the weapons of mass destruction as justification for that war. And as we know, that those didn't exist.
Right, Brittany. And I think that's why the American people are so worried about getting into another conflict where we don't have the full details and they're not being presented the full details of what's happening in Iran and what these nuclear threats are. I want the president and I want this administration to be open with the American people. And if you're going to engage us into a real threat, like if you're saying Iran is a real threat, then make sure that we as Americans understand that. That's not what we're getting from him. We do not need another Iraq.
Is Congress getting anything from President Trump when it comes to Iran? I know that obviously you can't share classified information, but do you know if the United States is going to strike Iran?
Look, we're not getting enough. And I think a lot of news outlet is reporting out there that they're doing the bare minimum to satisfy the law to give notice to members of Congress. But this administration from day one has not been an ally or partner with this Congress. They just exercise and do what they want to do and then tell us after the fact, which is unfortunate and illegal.
You serve as a co-chair of the Democratic Caucus National Security Task Force. So I'm really curious, when we're talking about Iran, would a strike against Iran be in the best interest of U.S. national security?
I think for that question, it's a little loaded. Depends on whether we have the intelligence that they are developing nuclear weapons and they have reached a certain point where we believe that's a threat. I cannot take everything that this administration is just putting out there. These boat strikes in Venezuela, the attack on Iran, a few months ago. And exactly like you said, he says one thing, oh, we destroyed their capability, but then in the same breath, oh, we have to continue attacking them because they're a threat to the US. So which is it?